Hey, it's your host, Brandon Laws. Thanks for the download today. Today's very special episode of Transform Your Workplace is brought to you by Xenium HR. Most businesses are overwhelmed by the ever-changing demands of HR and compliance. Partner with Xenium to conquer those demands and thrive. Our custom HR support packages include HR consulting, foundation building with proven systems and processes, and dedicated support. Learn more about Xenium's custom HR solutions at xeniumhr.com, and a link is in the show notes. Okay, I am so excited for this episode. I had a great conversation with today's guest, Ken Coleman. Ken is a personality with Ramsey Solutions. Most notably, he's co-hosted the Dave Ramsey Show, has the Ken Coleman Show, and wrote several books, all of which links will be in the show notes for those. And he is helping people with their careers, and he's helping leaders build great workplaces. And I had an awesome conversation with him about Generation Z, the modern workplace, how to focus on effective communication as leaders. And we talk about attracting and retaining talent, how to foster growth, and a whole lot more. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. Ken was absolutely amazing. It was a fun discussion, and I learned a lot in the process. If you're not a subscriber, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, wherever you listen. And if you'd be so kind to give a 5-star rating and review anywhere you listen, that'd be super helpful to helping us grow this podcast. And definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I love hearing from listeners and how you're liking the show and how you're using it to transform your own workplace. Enjoy the conversation with Ken Coleman. Hey, Ken, it's a pleasure to have you on Transform Your Workplace. Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm happy to be here, and I love the name of this, Transform the Workplace. This is something that's needed, so love this topic. Let's dive right into it, because I'm curious, what can we help with today on this issue?
Well, a lot of the leaders that I talk to, their workplace cultures are struggling, and they don't really understand this newer generation of Gen Z. And I've witnessed it myself, and I hear people talking about it. They just don't think Gen Z wants to work as hard. And I'm curious if you think that the American hustle culture, is it dead? Is it dying?
No, I don't think so. You could make an argument, and you could probably back it up with some data that less people want to hustle maybe today than maybe previous times in history, certainly in modern history. You could probably make that case. But I think that we've got to be careful about things like that, where we cast aspersions on generations and say, well, this generation is lazier than this generation. Because if you go back and you pull comments about each generation, you could find that probably being said about Gen X, my generation. And so you got to be careful about all that. With every generation, there are duds. With every generation, there are studs. And I don't think that that's the right way of looking at this, to say, it's a good question, but no, I don't think we should look at it as hustle culture. No, there's going to be a lot of people that want to hustle, that get after it. I mean, I see kids that are crushing it on YouTube and making millions of dollars. And I would say that's hustle. People don't realize, a lot of people that are older have no idea how much work goes into a successful YouTube channel. So no, I don't think hustle culture is dead at all. I just think that the way we view work, the way we view compensation for the work, I think that's going through an interesting grinder. And so that's interesting. But no, there will always be people that want to hustle, because there are always people that want to win in life.
And I've seen it with, I'm upper millennial, and I've seen it with my generation, and then obviously Gen Z as well. Like, you want work to fit in with your life. And I know a lot of folks from my generation and Gen Z are really asking for the 4-day work week. And that seems to be gaining a lot of traction. I hear people asking their managers for it. Do you think it's a good idea? And is it realistic in every single business?
Yes, if executed right, and no. So yes, I think it's a good idea for the right company. And I think that there's two macro factors that explain yes for the right company. Macro factor one, the right leadership. They're going to press through. They're innovative. They're smart. They're tied into the organization, and the people who are in the organization, they've got a finger on the pulse, and they're innovative enough and bold enough to figure out, how do you go from 5 days to 4 days? So for the right company with the right leadership, yes, it's a good idea. But then I would also say that the other macro effect is the industry. I think the 4-day work week could do very well in certain industries. There'll be other industries where it's just not a fit. It'll be a square peg kind of in a round hole. So that's my answer to that part. What was the second part of the question?
Well, that was the first part, and then I asked if it was realistic.
Oh, is it realistic? Yeah. Yes, I do think it's realistic. I think it's coming. I mean, it is the largest study that's been done on a 4-day work week. Was a 6-month study out of London, the UK. And the short takeaways are productivity did not drop and profitability actually did jump. So I've also now, outside of that study, that's just me reading the data from that study, but I actually had a CEO of a small business. It was a creative agency out of California, and she got some news coverage on their trial. And I had her on my show and did a deep dive with her. And that was really, really revealing to me. She said it worked in a lot of ways and it didn't work in a lot of ways. And they ended it because they felt like we got to figure the whole thing out. We can't keep doing it just because there were some good things, because there were also some bad things. And they basically said, all right, we're going to come back to a 5-day work week until we can figure out the bugs or figure out a better process. And I think that's an example of what I was saying earlier, the right kind of leader who can figure it out, then I think it's going to work. So will it be a one-size-fits-all? Who knows? I don't think so. But do I think the 4-day work week is coming to America? I think it's coming.
100%. Actually, I had one of my employees approach me and say, hey, what do you think about me doing a 4-day work week? And I said, well, here's the work. I think we can make it happen. Let's try it out. Let's do a 90-day trial. We kind of laid out the work and was expected, and it's been working. We've been doing it a year now, but that's like in a micro pocket. So we were able to make that decision within our department. But I imagine at a global scale, it's pretty tough. Big change management issue.
Well, what is the key? Let me turn it on you. What is the key to a 4-day work week winning?
Well, I think it's clear expectations about the work that's in front of them. We use a great project management system. We have a ton of projects and tasks that we're doing that I often delegate to this particular person. And it's effective because we check in twice a week, a regular one-on-one and a project meeting where we're looking at the tasks for the week. And we just kind of plan out every week and do short sprints. And that's how it's worked for us, at least.
And I'm guessing that, as I hijack your podcast here, I'm guessing that you're not trying to shove 40 hours into 32.
No.
It's really about results.
It was about results, right. And we're constantly touching base on what the workload is like too. I'm not expecting the 40 hours to be shoved into 32 hours. Well,
see, that's the key. You know, I've said on my show before, I don't think anybody works 40 hours a week anymore. Now, there's two sides to that. What I'm talking about is if you're working a 40-hour week, you're taking a lunch hour. Well, you're already not working 8 hours a day. You've got an 8-hour day, but you're taking an hour for lunch, right? And then just looking at the data on social media and how many times people are looking at social media during it. Come on. I mean, who are we kidding? And then you got people who work more than 40 hours. You know, they're putting it in. Sometimes because they have to, some are doing it because they want to,
they love their work.
or because it's required. So it's interesting. To me, it's not about the schedule, it's about the output.
I agree. You've talked to, I'm sure, a ton of people in the Gen Z generation. And like I said earlier, I think a lot of leaders are trying to figure out this generation. What motivates them? They have some probably life and professional motivators that then translate to what they look for in an employer. What are some of those things that they're looking for?
Well, they're looking for the same things that every generation is looking for. There are 3 human needs that everybody kind of needs to get met. And I am pulling this data from the largest study on employee engagement ever done by Gallup. But I'm going to answer it as what motivates them and then really focus on the heart of your question. And it's a shift. So purpose and meaning in their work is 1. 2, recognition for their unique contribution. And 3 is a relationship with their leader. I don't care what generation they are. They all want those 3 things out of work. And you could put those under the umbrella of, I want to be able to make a good living and feel like I got a chance to grow. All right. So that's kind of the umbrella. So I could say 5 things. Everybody wants a chance to provide for themselves and their family. They want a chance to grow that, advance. They want meaning and purpose in their work. They need to be recognized by their leader for their unique contribution. And then they want a relationship, a coach, mentor type relationship with their manager. That's what they want. So what we need to be looking at is not what motivates Gen Z, because it's the same thing as everybody else. So that's why I went through those 5 things. Leaders, you get that, you're winning. And you're beating the competition because people don't want to leave you and people are trying to join you. All right, that's the competitive edge. You deliver those 5 things I just gave. I'm telling you right now, you'll be looked at as a legendary leader and you'll win, win, win. I'm not kidding. It's that simple. Now, the question that we need to be looking at for Gen Z is not what motivates them, because I already told you, and that's what motivates everybody else. But what's different about this generation? We need to be asking this question: what paralyzes them, or what defeats them? Okay, because this has some nuance. And what I mean by that is that every generation, we as humans long for those 5 things I just mentioned, but now every generation as to what deters them, defeats them, paralyzes them. Okay, that has some cultural nuance to it, okay? So, for instance, this generation struggles with what I would call old school fundamental communication, because they've been raised with a phone in their hands, and they've been raised by people who weren't looking at them in the eye, they were looking at their screen. Okay, so we've got some fundamental communication stuff. They would prefer to text or snap instead of look at you in the eye and have a conversation. I think that there are some communication 101 stuff that we've got to lead these younger people through. This is the most anxious generation the world's ever seen. I sat in an assembly yesterday morning at my son's college prep school, and a psychologist came in and addressed the seniors and the parents. It was wonderful. But he pointed out again, my generation, Gen X, and the older millennials, we are the most anxious parents. And because we were anxious, we raised anxious kids. And so these kids are not soft. They're not a broken generation. They've just been coddled and they've been controlled. And so now as leaders, we got to understand we've got this fresh crop of talent coming to us that may be more technically savvy, creatively savvy than any previous generation, which is flipping awesome. But they have been coddled and controlled. And so now you're getting them where they're supposed to be acting independent on their own. And so the fix is to slowly get them to a point where they're more independent and where they believe in themselves, and they can take off the shackles or the coat of parental control or parental coddling. Because the coddling and controlling is the big problem, okay? The controlling part is they weren't allowed to fail. They weren't allowed to experience pain or suffering. The coddling is they've been told they were great, that they were going to be amazing, and yet they've never been taught how to be amazing. So that combination is a pretty lethal cocktail to stunting someone's individualism. And so as a leader, what I'm saying for this generation is you've got to see an opportunity, not a hurdle, with those 2 things. Because a lot of leaders are like, good grief, this generation, I got to hold their hand. I got to, you know what? Take that as an opportunity. Because what we know about Gen Z is they actually want to be led. They want to be mentored. And so this is an opportunity to step in and be, as a leader for them in their development, what their parents were not. So instead of getting pissed off about it, get fired up about it and go, okay, they're used to hands-on helicopter parents. How do I take that? That's what they're used to, and get their buy-in and trust, because they want to be told what to do and how to do it. And what if I do a really good job of showing them and then equipping them? So this is what you're going to do. Now I'm going to teach you how to do it. And then now I want you to go out and do it. And I want you to do it and don't worry about screwing up. And actually lead them where their parents would not, into failure, and go, it's okay. You're going to fail, but I'm not going to fire you, because this is the best way for you to learn. And just begin to build their muscle for failure, their appetite for failure, and watch them shine.
One of the biggest challenges that every generation is facing, and I think it's impacting the younger generations the most, is inflation. And it's slowed down a little bit, but the prices are up everywhere. And I worry about this Gen Z group not being able to buy a house like the generations before it. I know I've talked to several younger people, and this is something that's on their mind, and it's forced them to often engage in the gig economy. So they're having a side hustle and they have a full-time job, working probably way more than they want. Are you hearing this too? And what's the impact?
Yeah, well, 2 things. Number one, inflation is real, but expectations are unreal. And we got this generation who they have been coddled, they have been given so much, and they haven't been taught. And so they haven't had to work for a whole lot. So the expectations coming out of college are based on, it's not their fault. So if you're Gen Z listening to this right now, please do not get offended until you fully hear what I'm saying. It's not your fault. You aren't soft. You aren't stupid. You aren't a whiner. All that. I hate when people over criticize a generation. Gen Z, listen to me. Your parents didn't prepare you for the realities that it takes a while to buy a decent sized house. But you grew up in a house that took your parents 15 years to buy, maybe. Okay. So we've got inflation is real. Rent is high. Mortgages are high. Housing is through the roof. All the things. It's true. However, unrealistic expectations lead to unmet expectations. And so what we've got to do is go, hey, you may need to rent for 3 to 5 years. And no matter what Uncle Larry told you, you're not pissing your money away if you're renting, because if you're renting while saving, and maybe you're renting with 2 or 3 people and your rent is a fraction of what a mortgage you could not afford would be, you're actually wiser. And you got more freedom and you got options as your professional career develops, and you kind of try something here and kind of like the mouse in the maze trying to get the cheese, boom, oh, I got to go right or I got to go left. And if I don't have a mortgage that I'm over leveraged with, then it's a lot easier to make that journey. So I think the issue is be patient, be realistic in your expectations. Part of that realism is understanding that we're in a really hot inflationary season. And this too shall pass. And if it doesn't pass, you could still buy a house. You're just not going to buy a house as fast as you thought. And you're not going to buy a house as big as you thought. And that's okay too.
I don't know if there's more of an emphasis on it now, or maybe it's always been there, but it seems like people really are looking for an employer that has mission, vision, values that align with their own.
Yeah.
How do you maybe talk to the employers out there right now? How can employers be better about broadcasting it so they can cast a net, find candidates that might see the world the way they do and fit nicely, and even share that with current employees so they stay?
Yeah, this is a great question. I love it. The short, simple answer is, because this is, again, nuanced by company, but in short, companies need to think as much about their brand as an organization and who they are and what they stand for and why they stand for it. You know, like, why do we make this product? What's the story behind this company? I've never heard of this company. Oh, it was started 30 years ago? Why was it started? What were the values? What's the origin story? And what do we stand for as it relates to our product or service? Not what do we stand for politically. I think that's a dangerous strategy. And honestly, I think it's misguided. But what you stand for as it relates to the product or service, I'd be talking about that as much as I would the 30% off discount. So when you're advertising, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know the perfect ratio, but I'll just make this up. You got to ask yourself, is it 80-20? 80% we're just pitching the product. 20% we're talking about who we are and why we do what we do and how we're different. Talk about the customer's needs. All of that with a proper narrative is going to attract the right people who align with the values of the organization. So it's not just what you offer, but who you are, how you offer it, and why you offer it. If you create that narrative as well, then you're going to attract people. And then I'd say one minutia is, I think companies need to do a better job in their job openings and how they talk about them. Everybody talks about the job description itself, and I think that's obviously important. But I would also start talking about the type of person that would be a great fit and describe that person. And all of a sudden there's a caricature, if you will, an archetype that a person looking at that goes, that's not me, or that's me, And I think that would be valuable.
I think the majority of people out there, they want a career path. They want to up-level their skills, especially as things are drastically changing with technology and just the business landscape it's a whole beast right now. Do you think this is an employee responsibility or an employer responsibility? Maybe both?
I think it's both. Yeah, I do. I mean, go a different direction with that. Dig deeper on that. Push me a little harder on that question.
Yeah, when an employee is inside of an organization working, they really like the employer, but they need to up-level their skills to maybe go to a higher level career path, and they want to stay there.
Right.
How could maybe they work together to build a plan that it would effectively get them to the level they want? Maybe make more money, more opportunity.
Yeah, that's good. I like that because the other question is, yes, it's the responsibility of both. The employee's got to always be growing, right? as a person and getting better. But then the organization, if you want to retain people, and we're talking about that is the name of the game is retention, then yes, you need to be developing people and offering them opportunities for growth, subsidizing it. That's important. So that's a straightforward both. Now, the partnership. I love that, the nuanced part of that question. Let's go with the leader first. What the leader needs to be doing is in regular communication, getting inside the head and heart of their team that they lead and find out, what does growth look like for that person? What are they aspiring to? Is it realistic on this team? Is it not? What's the desire that they have to grow and get better? And so let's just get their take. Then there's your take. I'm looking at them and I'm going, okay, if their skills represents a tool belt, there are 2 or 3 skills that I believe they've got the raw talent for, that if I invest in them and our company invests in them and they are willing to say, I'll add those to my tool belt, they become more valuable to the organization. And as a result, they become more valuable to themselves as it relates to their potential. So as the leader, you got to know, at the end of the day, most people would like to at least know what a ladder of growth would look like. All right? Because remember this, I tell leaders this all the time. Stop thinking that people want a better job and that you might be that job. Start thinking people want a better life, and the job that I offer them may allow them to get that better life. That's the connection. Now, flip this to, what does the employee do? The employee's got to be 360 evaluations from coworkers, from their leader, sitting down with their leader. If you don't do an annual review, beg for an annual review. If they don't do a weekly meeting, beg for it, or beg for a semi-regular meeting and say, hey, where am I winning? Where am I winning? Where could I be better? What do you think that I can do to make the where can I be better answer a reality? You're saying that to your leader. This shows humility and hunger, and it will also indicate to you pretty quickly whether or not your leader actually gives a crap about developing you. Because you offer that 2 or 3 times and no response, you are not in a healthy organization, or you are not under the leadership of a healthy leader. If you are in a healthy situation, you're going to get answers. That's how both need to address that question.
The skills that are desired by employers it's going to vary by role, the competencies needed to do a job effectively. But if you can think of competencies and skills that are really desired right now by employers, maybe at the leadership level, I think we need really strong managers and leaders. As you were talking about earlier, we need these great leaders to come along and help this Gen Z be uncoddled and develop and grow. So what are some of those skills that people could be working on right now?
Based on the calls I'm taking on my show and speeches I give for companies and HR executives and all this, there's one clear one at the top. I'll save that one for last. That's showing up in all of the data. But a few that I would point out are communication. And this is not, by the way, the ability to stand up and give a knockout speech. This is, do I know what I want? Do I know what the customer wants? Do I know? I mean, am I able to formulate really clear thoughts and then communicate those thoughts in a very understandable way? And then I'm able to ask questions. I'm a good listener. That's all wrapped up into communication. Communication skills are huge. I would also, I'm not going to do a list of 5 or 6. There's a million running around my head, but I'm trying to go with the big, I'll go with 3. The other one that I'm going to mention that I hear a lot of is just the ability to lead. The ability to actually serve people and go, my job as the leader is to help them win at their job. It's not my job to just sit back and give orders and check on people to see if they're doing the thing and hopefully they do it right and then I get credit for it. That's not leadership. Leadership is saying, hey, we're going this way, grab on the rope. I'm going to help pull us. We are going to pull together, but I'm at the front and I'm pulling. I'm not pushing you. I'm pulling you. I'm serving you. I'm alongside of you when I need to be alongside of you. I'm out of the way when I need to be out of the way. I'm walking around going, how can I help you win in your role? Because that's my job as a leader. Then the third one, and this is the one that's popping up, I think it's 2 out of the last 3 years, LinkedIn is saying that it's the number one skill people are looking for, and that's adaptability. And this is just, if you want to break that down, it's people who can manage change emotionally. That's all it is. Adaptability is actually an attitude. We could say it's a skill, and it is, but it's considered a soft skill, but it's an attitude. And it basically just means, you know what? Change happens. And it can be sucky, it can be scary, but you know what? It happens. And by the way, when change happens, it's too late to gripe about it. I got to adjust to the change. And that ability to mentally and emotionally adjust and just go, all right, I didn't ask for the change. The change happened and we're sitting here together, me and change. And how am I going to move forward at some point with the new reality? And let me tell you something. In today's ever-evolving world, adaptability is premium right now. By the way, real quick thought. I want your audience to just give themselves a score, okay? Score of 0 to 5. 0 means you hate change so much. If somebody says the word change, you start getting freaked out and a little rash appears. 5 being when somebody says change, you go, where, when, yes, how? All right? So there's your scale. And just a little fun exercise. Be honest with yourself. What number would you give yourself? And what do you think others would give you? And then wrestle with that number. And if you don't think you're a 4 or a 5 and you're going, okay, Ken, I'm being honest here. How can I get better? Because a lot of people ask me, how can I get better at change? Because change is a soft skill, so you can get better at it. In fact, you can go from 0 to hero. All right, here's how you do it. What you need to get to the bottom of is, what am I afraid of? Because change represents something new. And then you got to go, oh, what I'm actually afraid of, why I hate change is I'm afraid of the unknown. So anytime change is positioned to me, I need to go, oh, I don't know this, I don't know this, I don't know this, and it makes me sick to my stomach. So what do? We go get the answers to the best of our ability on the unknowns. Second piece of advice. If you want to get better at change, start working change into your everyday life where it's uncomfortable, but it's not detrimental. In other words, it's not affecting your job. It's not going to affect your budget very much, if at all. It's kind of a risk-free, but it's kind of a pain in the you-know-what. And I'm going to change some things. I'm going to change this routine. I'm going to change and start adapting and building a muscle for change. Just make yourself uncomfortable with very low risk. And I think you'll see it begin to help you as a professional and in your personal life across the board. If you're one of these people that goes, I hate change, well, start building the muscle for it.
Couple quick things and I'll let you go. I've been listening to you for a long time. You've interviewed a lot of really smart people. You read a lot of books, and clearly you do. What are maybe 1 to 3 books that come off the top of your head that would be perfect for people in their career development?
Okay, career development. I think Keith Ferrazzi's book, Never Eat Alone, is a fabulous book about leveraging the time you have over a meal or a coffee or a cocktail. Never Eat Alone is, and I'm way simplifying this great book, but the idea is that you should always be learning while you're lunching, and just don't eat alone. Like every meal ought to be a chance to learn and grow and connect. You asked me for 3? Is that what you said?
1 to 3.
1 to 3. Okay. So Never Eat Alone is about the power of just constantly connecting with people. Okay. I think this is a great for all professionals, okay? Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. Little short book you can read in about 15 minutes. Here's what Steal Like an Artist is about. It's about finding your voice and your inspiration. And he makes the point that all the great artists, whether they be painters, sculptors, or musicians, they steal from other people who inspire them. So it's not plagiarism. He is not in any way, and he comes out and says it, we're not talking about plagiarism. What we're saying is that, when I first got serious about broadcasting, I watched 3 guys nonstop. I watched Larry King live, and all your Gen Z audience is going to go, who's that? I know. I watched Bob Costas interviews, legendary sports broadcaster, and I watched David Frost, who is a legendary TV interviewer. And I stole techniques from them. I did not plagiarize them, but they inspired me. But then they made me think, well, here's how I want to do it. And I want to be different or whatever. And so the Beatles, who do you think the Beatles stole from? There's nothing original under the sun. So Steal Like an Artist is great for creativity. And another book that I would recommend from a leadership perspective, I think it's one of the great leadership books ever written, called Developing the Leader Within You, and talks about the 5 levels of leadership. And John Maxwell, former mentor, former boss of mine, it's a really simple book on leadership that helps you see what the evolution of leadership looks like. So those are 3 real quick that I think can help all professionals, notwithstanding those books behind me on the shoulder. They're
your books.
Paycheck. Listen, if you want to know what the professional journey looks like and the cycle, Paycheck to Purpose lays out the 7 stages: getting clear, getting qualified, getting connected, getting started, getting promoted, getting that dream job, and then giving yourself away. And this repeats itself throughout the professional journey.
What's a tool that you can offer that people can use to assess where they're at in terms of talent, passion, purpose? And I know you're working on some stuff there.
I appreciate this, and I want to do the why before I tell you the what. For years I was a big fan, and still am, of Myers-Briggs. It's good. It's not my favorite, but there are a lot of personality-based tests that have been pulled into the world of work discussion. And you'll take these things and they'll say, well, you're this personality, so here's a list of 10 to 20 professional paths that might be a good fit for people this personality type. And I always cringe at that. I think it's incomplete at best. I think it's bad science at worst. And so I wanted to create a tool that actually said, how can I figure out my identity, my uniqueness, in other words, who I am, and also help me figure out what I want to do. And so I created the Get Clear Career Assessment. It measures 3, think of these as wires. All right. If I crack you open as a human, you got one wire is talent. This is just stuff that you came into the world and you're pretty good at it. And if you apply yourself and learn and do, you can be great at it. All right. Second wire is passion. This is, you just love this kind of a task or work. I think of a master craftsman. They just love the idea of creating something. They take it from their mind to their hand. It's a true love, and you're willing to suffer to do this kind of work. That's passion. The third wire is mission, because everybody has this desire to make a difference in the world. So what are the results of work that you get most fired up about? So in other words, some people get fired up to do work that creates influence, people change, transformative change. That's where I'm at. Some people get really fired up to deliver results of service. Some people get fired up to deliver results of creativity. So there are 6 motivational drivers we know from psychology, and this assessment helps you get clear on that too. So here's what it looks like. It tells me in a purpose statement with a very detailed report on the top 3 talents I have. This is what I do best. This is what I love to do most, the top 3 passions. And these are the results that drive me. And that's mission. So if you use what you do best to do what you love to produce results that matter to you, guess what? You're a really happy person who's probably got a lot of potential financially. And oh, by the way, that's a better life. So the Get Clear Career Assessment, and I wrote a short book to go with it. It's called Find the Work You're Wired to Do, and it picks you up at your results. So the assessment takes about 15 minutes. You get a detailed report that I tried to quickly tell you what it gives you. But then this short book called Find the Work You're Wired to Do is me coaching you with the other 3 things you need to know. The assessment is who I am, my uniqueness in the world of work. Then we get into what do I want to do? Where can I do it? How do I get there? And Find the Work You're Wired to Do, that little short book. Takes about 45 minutes to read. So you get a book and an assessment. To me, it's way more complete than StrengthsFinder, because all StrengthsFinder did, and it's a great product, was say, here's the 5 things you're really, really good at. Good luck. See you later. And so I'm really, really proud of this new project because it answers all 4 questions. Who am I? What do I want to do? Where can I do it? How do I get there?
Great work. We'll put a link to that assessment in your books in the show notes for sure. But Ken, just really appreciate you coming on. Any last words or point people to connect with you, anything like that?
Yeah, listen, there's 2 schools of thought or 2 worldviews when it comes to work. The dominant worldview, sadly, is you work to live. I'm only knocking it out to make it to the weekend. The benefit is I pay my bills. I have a little left over for family vacation, maybe the dog, a wedding, college. But boy, I hope I can sock enough away to kind of play shuffleboard when I'm 65. That's the dominant worldview of work. The other narrow lane, if you will, that's the wide lane, the wide path. The narrow path is we should live to work. But instead of workaholic, never enjoy life, no, live to contribute. If I took the word work out of that and said live to contribute, and I realized that work is the one thing in my life where I can take my talent and do something I enjoy and deliver a result that I value, that's my contribution. And oh, by the way, I get a nice paycheck and a really nice life because of that. That's the flip side. And I want you to take the view of the second path because I believe that fulfillment and freedom is on the other end.
My guest today has been Ken Coleman. Ken, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Honored.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in for today's episode of Transform Your Workplace. The content on this show is strictly for general information and educational purposes only. so that you can go transform your workplace in a positive way. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the show are the guest's own and don't represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of either Xenium HR, the sponsor of the show, or me, the host, Brandon Laws. Additionally, Xenium HR or myself, Brandon Laws, doesn't endorse any guest, their business, or any organization they represent, so discretion is advised. We encourage you to work with a trusted advisor to find a custom approach that fits your organization's needs. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode.